So do you think that there's a chance that under Mr. Modi, who's such a fantastic leader, who's been so visionary, who's a man that India has been waiting for 70 years, I feel there is no change, towards China. The same fear, the same trying to
Mhm.
please China. What is your opinion?
You're absolutely right. In fact, today, as the whole of India is grieving over what happened in Ladakh yesterday, and I was reading your blogs just to get a gist of what you said in the past, and there is a wonderful blog that you wrote 4 years ago that talked about the enemies of Hindus and India, and we'll come to that later. But in the countries, you had put China as number one, even in front of Pakistan, because you had said that China is the biggest enemy that India has. And that is a sentiment that was also echoed by George Fernandez, who was perhaps one of the best defense ministers that we had. He had said that India's real enemy is not Pakistan. Pakistan we can deal with any day. It's China who is the real enemy. So I agree with you, and we obviously know what has happened yesterday in Ladakh, and it grieves all of us as Indians. And I wasn't able to sleep last night, and that was the situation of many people. But having said that, while I agree that India has been pussyfooting around China, probably because trying to build a relationship, trying to avoid conflict, because unfortunately, we have China, and it's a big country right across our border. But having said that, I still would like to say that this is not 1962 and Mr. Modi is not Nehru. So there will be a response. When that will be a response, I don't know. How it will be a response, I don't know. But I know and I have faith that Mr. Modi is bang on national security, and he is going to do something that will ensure that India's territorial dignity is respected and our soldiers' death will not go in vain. That much faith I have. That much faith I have in Mr. Modi and in the vote that I gave him last year.
So let me say something because I'm a great admirer of the Dalai Lama.
Hmm.
I have interviewed him maybe 8, 9 times. He's a wonderful person. I think that Tibet, was always a peaceful buffer between the two giants, China and India.
Yes.
And I think that India is not using it because there's one thing that upset the Chinese is the Dalai Lama. So why is Mr. Modi not, propping up the Dalai Lama? China is not recognizing Kashmir, not claiming Arunachal
Yes.
Pradesh. So why can't there be a quid pro quo? Why can't India under Mr. Modi, visionary leader, do the quid pro quo? Tell the Chinese, okay, you do that now. The Dalai Lama was a wonderful man. We're going to allow him to Arunachal Pradesh. He's going to go to Ladakh. He's going to go to Assam. He's going to go
That's
to
right.
Sikkim. You claim. Why can't India do that?
I really have no idea, and I cannot really answer that because I'm not Mr. Modi. So that is a decision I think that Mr. Modi needs to take. But so I really can't answer
You're a
the question.
strong
But
person.
I
You're
hear you in saying that. Yeah, putting pressure, yes. I think all of us are in our own way recognizing that China is the real enemy. And obviously, the
You're a
government is
Kshatriya.
under
You're a
tremendous
Kshatriya.
pressure. Pardon me?
You're a Kshatriya. You're a person who's not scared. And
I'm
not.
not
I love
scared.
him.
I'm not scared. I'm not scared. I just genuinely feel that I cannot answer why Mr. Modi is not doing something because I'm not Mr. Modi. That is
Right.
the only
But
thing. You know, I don't mince my words. You said that you are very politically incorrect several times, right? And you are politically incorrect. Like you, I am also very politically incorrect. So I say things that I really mean. But in this case, I genuinely, I mean, I cannot answer for Mr. Modi. But having said that, I have a lot of faith in him whenever it comes to national security. There are things that I wish this government had done better in terms of setting narrative, in terms of changing textbooks, in terms of teaching correct history to the children. I think we are not doing much there. I don't think we are doing much in appropriating our cultural places, our icons, our temples. So in all these areas, I hear you, but I think on national security, this government's priorities are absolutely correct, and I have a lot of faith that what is going to unfold is going to be good for India. That much confidence and that much faith I have.
okay, so I'm going to be the devil's advocate a bit. Don't you think that Mr. Modi, who was the Chief Minister of Gujarat, was a very, down to earth, efficient, but also fiery leader. Now, the fact that he's gone to Delhi, he sanctioned a system set up by Congress for 70 years, a VVIP system, a system of
That's right.
bureaucrats, labor. Do you think that has affected, his grasp of things, his boldness, his willingness? Do you think that has affected him?
I think it's not so much the fact that see, being a chief minister of a state and being the prime minister are two completely different things. When you're a chief minister of a state, you only have your state and the state policies to look after for. When you're going to Delhi as the prime minister, obviously it's a whole different ball game. So you cannot be the same person. Tomorrow, if Yogi Adityanath also goes to Delhi, I'm sure he's not going to be as fiery or as upfront as he is right now as the chief minister of UP. So it is partly the demands of the role. You are going one level above. You are ruling the whole country, sort of. You are responsible for the welfare of every citizen from every part of country. You are not supposed to be taking sides. So obviously the role has its own demands, and it demands a certain gravitas, it demands a certain dignity, and you have to evolve. I see nothing wrong in him being less fiery. But if you're talking about whether the bureaucracy has become strong, see, this government has taken several very, very bold steps which nobody thought would even be possible. For example,
Yes.
abolishing Article 370. Nobody, even 2 days before that, even the most loyal supporters of the party as well, were thinking that okay, at the most they will take out 35A, but they will not touch 370. But they did it, and they did it with great ease, and they managed the fallout. They managed the fallout internationally. So I don't think it's fair to say that he has become milder or he has lost his fairness. It's a little
We
unfair,
don't,
Francois.
we don't agree. We don't agree.
No, I don't agree. I don't. But then I am a huge Modi fan. So are you. So I don't hide that. I have a lot of respect for this man, and you've said it before in the past that he's a vibhuti. I genuinely believe that.
No, no, no. I no doubt, it's a tremendous responsibility, and he become the prime minister of all the Indians. So, and he's acted in a very, dignified manner. But sometimes, one feels that the sadhus get killed, one Dalit gets killed, Mr. Modi says something, another, someone, a Muslim gets aggressive, says something. But if Hindus are killed, after all, Hindus elected him,
That's right.
98% of votes were Hindus, One has
That's right.
a impression, I'm a defender of Hindus, I think they're such wonderful people, they're the inheritors of a knowledge which is gone from the world. So I feel I may be wrong because he's a man who works behind the scene. I feel that sometimes he should speak up for the people who have elected him. And sometimes they do feel abandoned. But I know I may be wrong. I may be wrong.
Well, I again cannot reply for Mr. Modi. It's a decision that Mr. Modi needs to take. There are times when I've criticized this government, and I do, especially on the narrative setting part and the changing history books part, and lighting up the Humayun's tomb and neglecting Hindu temples part. I've been very, very vocal about it, and I will continue to be vocal about it. But I cannot tell you why Mr. Modi is not doing something. But I have a lot of faith on three things: on the foreign policy, on internal security, and on the last mile delivery of this government. On these three things, I think this government gets 10 on 10.
But not toward China. You are a little more doubtful about China.
I am optimistic. I think things will unfold. It's too early to say anything.
You ask me a question now. Your turn.
I want to know more about your journey. It's been very fascinating. You came to India when you were very young, right? You actually
Right.
road trip from Paris to India, and you came to India as a casual visitor, and you just fell in love with the land and the people. So how did that happen? Did it happen? Was it like love at first sight? Did India take time to grow on you? How did it happen?
No, no, very good question actually. Sometimes there's a debate between fate or accident. So I came to India by accident. I have a friend whose father was the last governor of Pondicherry. He was a
Okay.
Frenchman. He was the last governor of Pondicherry, and he was my best friend. And when I just completed my 18th year, and I wanted to go around the world, to understand better who I am. He said there's a caravan of cars driving from Paris to Pondicherry to start a city called Auroville. And I thought it was a good way to start my world tour, experience life. So I didn't know Shirabindo, I didn't know India, and all the cliches, most Westerners, they have cliches about India. Even today, unfortunately, there
Yeah.
are so many cliches about India, and I'm fighting against it. But I had the same cliche. I was very young. But I could, I'll take this caravan, and then from India I'll proceed to Southeast Asia. So we drove from Paris to Delhi, a lot of adventure. I wrote a book about that. So many countries, we crossed. And when I came to Delhi, I spent my first night in the Sri Aurobindo ashram. Now it's become mother school now. I know that school in
Hmm.
Delhi, very famous school called Mother School.
That's
So
right.
I spent a night there, and I just happened to open a book of Sri Aurobindo called The Life Divine, and I read two, three lines, and I felt I had come home. I mean, I was very young, and it sounds very arrogant to say that, but at that moment, I had an intuition that I had come home, and there was a lot of knowledge in this country, and I would stay all my life in this country. I wrote to my parents actually. The next morning, I wrote a long letter to my parents saying, I'm going to stay there forever. And they got very frightened, because of course I was very young and they expected me to go back to France, finish my studies, marry, settle down. So anyway, and then from Delhi we drove to Pondicherry and to Auroville, and I met the mother of Pondicherry. She was a French woman who was a companion of Shirobindu, and she started Auroville based on
That's right.
Shirobindu's ideas. Yeah. So I met the mother, and what a guru is. She looked into my eyes, and my whole world tumbled down. I stayed in the ashram and started reading Shobhindu. And eventually the mother passed away. I got lost. I didn't know what to do. I had done some journalism and photography. So I started freelancing in the south of India first, in
Hmm.
Kerala, Tamil Nadu. I did something on Karavepayat, on Ayanar. And then
Hmm.
I saw politics is very important. So I started going to Delhi and became a correspondent first for the Swiss newspaper, then one of the
Okay.
biggest French newspapers, and that's how it happened.
Okay. Yeah, I know you worked as a South Asia correspondent for Le Figaro, right? And
Right.
you've done a lot of work on Sabrimala as well. I think you've
Yes.
done articles and on the Sabrimala tradition. So I would like to know
Yes.
your opinion versus the recent Supreme Court judgment and the whole fracas that happened. uh, you come from, even though you're an outsider, you look at India with a gaze that is very sympathetic, which is almost an insider's gaze. You don't look at India like a curious onlooker. You understand a lot of our traditions, a lot of our way of thinking. So I would like to know your opinion about Sabrimala, having been there, having talked to the Sabrimala devotees. What what is your opinion about the court judgment?
What my opinion about what?
The Supreme Court judgment that is right now being reviewed about that women should be allowed entry in Sabrimala.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've been to Sabrimala two times. I was quite impressed actually. That was many years ago when I was doing photo features.
Okay.
It was a very beautiful experience actually because all these people in black who climb the mountains so I defend Hinduism. I mean, I know that lots of people have accused the Ayappa movement of banning women. At least,
Mhm.
those who still have their periods. But Hinduism is such an open religion. There is very, very few people where women are banned. The place
That's
of
right.
women in Hinduism is so important. Okay, you find a little negativeness and you harp on it. Like all the enemies of India are doing. But I'm married to an Indian. I live, I shuttle between Delhi, Pune, and Tamil Nadu, and I see, even in Tamil Nadu, in the villages, how much women are prized. How much there is respect for women. Of course, there are excesses. There are bad things that happen. But generally, in all my years I lived in India, I think women are, the Shakti element. I remember interviewing Benazir Bhutto twice, in Pakistan, which is a very male country, macho country. And she was sitting on the desk, all the men were standing, head bowed, So that Shakti element has pervaded, in Sri Lanka, in Pakistan, even in Bangladesh, which has two women prime ministers. So I do not dwell on the negativity about women in India because I loved Sabrimala. It didn't shock me that women were not allowed. I mean, in those days it was not a controversy. I thought it
Hmm.
was a beautiful
Even now,
pilgrimage.
yeah, even now it's a manufactured controversy. Actually, it's the people in Kerala are fine with the tradition being continued because there are other Ayyappa temples where men and women are allowed to go, and there are temples in Kerala where only women are allowed to go. It's just that diversity of practices. So the controversy is
Look
actually a
at
fake
look at Islam.
controversy.
Islam doesn't allow women in mosque. I mean,
Yeah,
you can say what. I mean, we respect Islam, fine, but they should not criticize Hinduism because no, I think no religion has given from time immemorial. I mean, the Western world gave votes to women only in the 20s, 20s, 30s.
that's
So
right.
from time immemorial, I'm doing a series of exhibition in the museum on women warriors, from
Hmm.
Rani Kitochena to Tarabai to so many extraordinary women, who were queens. Aliabai was an extraordinary queen in the
Yes.
Middle Age.
Yes.
She was not even noble. She was extraordinary woman. So
Yes.
I'm a defender of your people and the women of your country because
Yes.
such great women. Okay, my chance now.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Okay, so I'm a Frenchman brought in the glory of Napoleon, and we when we are kids, we're taught about Napoleon, his wars. He made so many laws. He was quite an extraordinary administrator. He was the first one who thought about unified Europe, though he tried to do it by force. So Napoleon is a great man of France.
That's
I
right.
lived near his tomb in Paris in the Les Invalides. My parents' house was very close to Napoleon's tomb. And so when I came to India, when I started, after Kashmir, when I saw what happened to the Hindus of Kashmir, I started reading in history. I came upon Aurangzeb, of course, and then about
Hmm.
Shivaji Maharaj.
That's right.
Now, Shivaji Maharaj is the Napoleon of India, even more. Why is it that, even in Indian history books, even in Indian manuals, school manuals, there is so little about him. You live in Maharashtra, you could tell me, you could explain it to me.
That's right. No, I absolutely agree with you. Just today I wrote something and you shared it. It's a story about Shivaji Maharaj and how he lost almost
So,
90% of his kingdom and then he rebuilt it from scratch, and how he never gave to despondency. But I had written it as a business story. But that aside, it's such a remarkable story. Here was a man who had a dream that was bigger than him, that was bigger than most people's lifetimes. And he didn't have to do it. He could have always chosen to take the easy way out. He could have just chosen to be a nice jagirdar, serve some Muslim sultanate, earn a lot of money, and spend his entire day listening to music and watching dances. He didn't have to establish a independent kingdom of the Hindus. And I'm saying it specifically because he calls his own kingdom as Hindavi Swarajya. I know there is a lot of effort to secularize him these days and to say that, oh, his kingdom was never about kingdom of Hindus. But the point is, he grew up in a milieu, and his mother was a very strong influence on him, and she ensured that he knew about how women were treated under Islamic rule, how the poor people were treated under the Islamic rule, how the temples were being destroyed under Islamic rule, and he was brought up with this strong feeling for Swadharma, and that is what made him think of Swarajya. And imagine at 16, this young raw boy, he says that he goes to Rohideshwar, he goes to a temple, and then he puts his sword in front of the Shivling and he says that I take a oath that I will not rest till my dream of Hindavi Swarajya comes true. And then he starts slowly expanding his kingdom, and at that point of time he's too small and too insignificant, so he just takes one fort by stealth, another fort by stealth, another fort by inducing people, and he builds up his kingdom. And then slowly the Deccan Sultanate start taking notice of him. So the Adil Shahi takes notice of him, Nizam Shahi takes notice of him, and then they realize that here is a foe whose ambition is not small. He's not looking for anything for himself. He has a dream that's bigger than anything that they have ever seen. So then they start attacking him, and then you have episodes in his life where Afzal Khan comes and he kills Afzal Khan. So far, Aurangzeb has ignored him because Aurangzeb's kingdom is too big and he's too small. So Aurangzeb feels that okay, this is going to dissipate. But when Shivaji Maharaj fights with the Deccan Sultanates and he increases the periphery of his kingdom, he makes sure that he has a little bit of place that he can actually call a legitimate kingdom. That's when Aurangzeb starts getting insecure. And remember, Aurangzeb spent a lot of his life as the Subedar of Deccan. So he's very aware of the topography of Deccan, he's very aware of the geography of Deccan. And suddenly he sees this man who is dreaming of a kingdom, but he's not dreaming of a kingdom because he wants to be the king. He's dreaming of a kingdom which is Swarajya, which belongs to the people. He dreams of a kingdom which is based on Dharma, which is not Islam. He's not your king of Jaipur whom you can buy. He's somebody who has this spirit that you cannot conquer. So Aurangzeb comes down on him with his full might, sends Mizaraza Jai Singh, and then we all know that the Treaty of Purandar happened, and Shivaji Maharaj had to cede 90% of his territory, and he had to go to Delhi and pretend to be in service of Aurangzeb. Imagine how humiliating it must have been for somebody who started from scratch and who had a big dream. But he doesn't lose heart, he doesn't become depressed, he doesn't give up. He comes back, he escapes from Aurangzeb's clutches, and he builds a kingdom that's even bigger than what it was. And then he gets a full Rajabhishek done, which is probably in the last 300 years, nobody had seen a Hindu king being crowned. And by that, and that is the one thing that Aurangzeb is afraid of. There is a novel called Shriman Yogi, in that it's a fictional novel, but there's a small piece in it, Aurangzeb's soliloquy. So it is shown that Aurangzeb is told that Shivaji has coronated himself. And all the courtiers in Aurangzeb's court laugh because they say, oh, it's a small kingdom, ours is such a big kingdom. So Aurangzeb says, you don't understand, you're fools. It's not the territory that matters, it's not the region that he controls that matters. What matters is that he had started a Hindu kingdom which will outlast him. It's a kingdom that is the enemy. Shivaji, he will have his own lifetime, he will, eventually he's a mortal, he'll pass on just like Aurangzeb will also pass on. And those are prophetic words, because after that Aurangzeb comes down to Deccan to defeat Shivaji Maharaj. He never is able to. Unfortunately, Shivaji Maharaj, that's a cruel joke played by God on the Hindus. I feel that Shivaji Maharaj got only 52 years of life. But Aurangzeb comes to Deccan, and then Aurangzeb dies in his old age, a broken man. He has killed Shivaji Maharaj's son, Sambhaji Maharaj, has tortured him and killed him. But even after that, the Marathas never stopped fighting. And that is Shivaji Maharaj's greatest achievement. He made the people of this country, he made the people of this region so strong and so fiery that they fought with the might of Aurangzeb even when there was no king to lead them. So when Sambhaji Maharaj they killed, they followed Rajaram. When Rajaram was killed, they followed his wife Tara Rani, but they continued to fight. It's such an amazing story. You're right. It's a story that should be taught in every textbook from first grade to graduation and post graduation. Unfortunately, it is not taught. And that is my chief grouse. Even in Maharashtra, it's taught for, only in 7th or 8th grade. It's really not taught in the detail that it should have been taught. And that really hurts me. And
Why?
that
Why?
is the narrative.
Why? Because India
Because
has been in power for 7 years.
exactly. And that is what I said. That is my chief grouse against this government, that they don't understand the power of changing the narrative. Why it has not been taught, it's very clear. It was the Congress decision for 70 years to hide the real history from the people of India. And I had an interview with Shri S.L. Bhairappa, noted Kannada writer, who was a part of the
Yeah.
first NCRT panel, which was in charge of, rewriting the history books. And
I
they
met
were
him.
told, actually in that NCRT meeting, and Bhairappa sir has been on record on this, and they were told to not mention anything which shows the Islamic invaders in bad light. So he asked, but this is not history. I mean, if you have to tell history, you have to tell it correctly. You have to say everything, right? You cannot just gloss over some parts and say that the Muslims gave us biryani and Taj Mahal, but they didn't do anything bad. So apparently he was told that no, that it may be correct history and all that, but we don't want to teach our children all that. And after that, he was dropped from that panel. So it's very clear why the Congress didn't want us to learn our correct history. But the point is, it's been year 6 of this government. Why it is still not changed, I don't know, and I would like it to be changed. And that is my chief grouse. I keep talking about it on social media and everywhere, that we need to teach our children the correct history. You've done a great job in doing a museum in Pune and doing a whole exhibit. I think you have different halls, right? One about Shivaji Maharaj, one about Maharana Pratap, one about Ahilyabai Holkar. And it hurts me. It's ironic that the only person who's thought of documenting something like this happens to be a Frenchman. With all due respect to you, I mean, we are 1 billion of us. We should be able to do it ourselves.
Yeah, but my question is why after 7 years of the BJP, now we understand, that if you introduce chanting of Vande Mataram in schools, minorities might object, but why not prop up India's own heroes like Shivaji Maharaj? What stopped the government? I have met three HRD ministers, since
Okay, then
the BJP.
you should be in a better position to answer that question. I haven't met a single HRD minister, so I can't tell you why they're not doing it. Whether they should do it, yes. Whether I'm putting pressure on them to do it in my own way, yes, I am. But why they're not doing it is probably something that you can answer better than me if you have met them personally. I have not met any HRD minister.
Okay, your turn now. Ask
Uh,
me a question.
yeah, I want to ask you about Fact Museum and about why did you think of documenting? I mean, your museum has got great exhibits. I've been there. I've supported it also financially when you were asking for donations. So when you were talking about halls dedicated to Shivaji Maharaj, Maharana Pratap, Ahilyabai Holkar, but you have also dedicated halls that have documented the Hindu Holocaust across the ages, right from the time when Islam first came to India, from Aladdin Khilji, from Mahmud of Ghori, to all the way to the Bangladesh war. And I've seen that museum. It's very, it troubles you a lot. After coming back from the visit, I was troubled for a while. What made you think of documenting it? And it's something that I'm very interested in because I'm from Goa and I'm writing a book about what happened in Goa.
So actually, Kashmir, because before Kashmir, I was, pretty ignorant about India. I mean, I started traveling and knowing India, that, the people of India are wonderful people, the simple people. But when I went to the valley of Kashmir and I was a witness to the exodus of the Kashmiri Pandits, it changed my whole outlook because I had met the people, I had met the leaders. I started going to Kashmir in the late 80s, maybe around 87. From 87 say, till 2000, I spent a lot of time in Kashmir. In those days, there were many famous people, Mahatma Ali and CNN was starting. But when I saw the exodus of the Kashmiri Pandits, it started, as I said before, I started thinking and looking and reading. And I started reading books, and of course, I read about Aurangzeb. And as you know, Aurangzeb is often depicted as a strict but benevolent ruler. But I
Yeah,
quickly understood that he was a monster. He was a
yeah,
monster, but a very meticulous but very cruel monster. The Al Qaeda and the people today, they're just descendants of Aurangzeb. They interpret the scripture that were written long ago to the letter. So Aurangzeb was like that. So from Aurangzeb, you come to Shivaji Maharaj, because Shivaji Maharaj, as you said so rightly, was the only one who had the guts to fight Aurangzeb, with a few hundred men. So, being a admirer of Napoleon, I was an admirer of Shivaji Maharaj. So I started writing books, and then I came to Pune. I'm also with my wife and also living teacher. We teach courses of pranayama. So I came to Pune for the first time. I'd never been to Pune. Maybe 12 years ago, I came to Pune to teach a course outside Pune. And I thought, because I'm a Frenchman, that there would be a huge museum in Pune about Shivaji Maharaj, the city of his birth, the city where, the real Shivaji Maharaj, maybe like Napoleon has in Paris, a huge museum. So when my course finished, I had a few hours before my flight. I asked my driver to take me to the main museum. I thought the main museum, would be Shivaji. So he took me to a museum called Kelka Museum, which
Yeah.
is probably the most sophisticated in Pune. But I
Yeah.
was shocked that there was not a single exhibit on Shivaji. There was everything, knives and artifacts and rich museum, artifacts and and
Hmm.
paintings and the Mughals and this and this and that, but not a single exhibit on Shivaji. I was shocked. I was really shocked. I was pained also. I felt that now I know why. After that, I studied and I know why this happened. But I was shocked. And the thought came to my mind that maybe I should do something. I mean, that was a bit arrogant to think, but maybe I should do something. I had done an exhibition of the Kashmiri Pandits. As soon as I Kashmir, finished maybe in 2005, I thought I should do something for the Kashmiri Pandit. So I did, and Sri Ravi Shankar, who supported me a lot. Mr. Advani was then the vice prime minister, gave me a lot of support. So a few people. So we opened that exhibition of the Kashmiri Pandits in Habitat Center in Delhi. That was my first exhibition. Then I thought I'd do something on Aurangzeb because I'd written about him. So I got a professor of Indian history in Jaipur, and we did some research. We found that Aurangzeb was a very meticulous guy. Every time he passed an order, either raiding temple or forbidding Hindus to write elephant or palanquins, he would have it written down and put the emperor's seal. All Aurangzeb orders are still preserved in India. In Hyderabad, there's a museum, and in Bikaner. So we had access to the archives of Bikaner. So we got hold of the archive of Aurangzeb, translated that from the Farsi, and had a team of painters do a painting exhibition on Aurangzeb as it was according to God. So then I had so many exhibitions, and Sri one day told me, I have some land near the Pune airport. Do you want it? And I remembered what I thought, when I first come to Pune and I felt I should do something about Shivaji Maharaj, that great, 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 great man, Napoleon was a great man, but he
Yeah.
had very powerful armies, Napoleon had 100,000 men at his disposal and cannons and, Shivaji Maharaj had 300 people, and he fought against
Yeah.
the most powerful in the world. So, Shushi gave me the land, the complicated story actually. I won't get into it now. And we started by doing a small shrine dedicated to the mother, to the Shakti, to Mother India, to Bharat Mata, and Shivaji Maharaj. That was my first building. And then, whenever I got some money, it's a Seva project. Whenever I got some money, I would put a small pavilion, put an exhibition. So now there are 16 pavilions. No, it's my debt towards India. It's not that I'm doing a favor because I keep saying that, but it's true. India has given me so much. Most Westerners feel they can give something to India. Sonia Gandhi feels she can give order to the Congress. Mother Teresa feels that she can alleviate poverty. No, but India has given me. I came to India. I learned from India. I'm married to an Indian. As a journalist, it's a fantastic country. I met so many extraordinary people in India, from the most simple people, the Kalari masters of in Kerala, with the Dalai Lama, Sri Ravi Shankar, Sai Baba. So many extraordinary people I met in India. So I am grateful for this knowledge, that the knowledge that India gave me. So this museum is my life, but of course it's been a very difficult project because when I
Yeah.
met so many corporate. Mr. Modi, when he was chief took an interest. He called for a few very big shots, and I went to meet them, and they said, they received me, of course, because Mr. Modi had called them. They said, after 1 or 2 months, they would say, but we give to health and education. We're not used to this mad Frenchman doing a museum on Indian history. Nobody dare touch. So
The real Indian history. If you had done an exhibit, eulogizing Aurangzeb, I'm sure you would have got a lot of donors.
yeah, so we got a lot of problems. We got threats, I mean, some people saw the Hindu Holocaust exhibition, of course, is an important one because the greatest genocide ever is that of the Hindus. This is not
That's right.
preaching, this is not. It's the greatest genocide from the Hindu Kush, where even the Encyclopedia Britannica said that at least 100,000 people died of cold on
That's
the
right.
Hindu Kush
Hmm.
taken by slaves. till Mumbai, till Mumbai, I mean, the Holocaust of Hindus is tremendous, and not recorded again by Indian history, not recorded at all.
That's
So
right.
my Hindu representation is important, as you said, but of course it got me into trouble. The Dalai Lama came, because I'm fond of him, so he came to inaugurate an exhibition. He's got a high security, so the CID, the CIB, the intelligence, everybody came, and they said, unless you remove that exhibition on Hindu Holocaust, we'll put you in jail. They told my wife, we'll put you in jail. So
Okay.
Dalama was crying. So, lot of problem, but I feel, as I said, it's my debt to India and it will survive me. I mean, if I'm able to
Yes.
make it a little bigger, more permanent, it will survive me. My books may not survive me, articles may, but this museum may survive me. It's a testimony of my love for your great country.
That's right, actually. And you played the devil's advocate. So let me play the devil's advocate for you and ask you some uncomfortable questions. For this museum, I know that Dalai Lama inaugurated it. Ajit Pawar's wife came and inaugurated it. Nitin Gadkari came and inaugurated certain exhibits. Uddhav Thackeray came and inaugurated certain exhibits. So everybody who is somebody in Maharashtra, every political party has come and promised you a lot of things, right? They've all said that this is a great idea, that we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Even Uddhav Thackeray, whose whole politics is in the name of Shivaji Maharaj. I mean, his whole party is called Shiv Sena. But the point
Ah,
is,
Udit Thackeray,
all,
he made a speech, Udit Thackeray, he made a speech, the Dalama was there, a lot of people, a lot of journalists, he
yeah,
said,
yeah.
"Hey, Bharat, this museum, I will do anything, anything." But I was never able to contact him after that. I tried because, his son was pretty nice, his wife looked friendly, So I tried to get through to him, but I couldn't even get him on the phone. I can, I could get Mr. Modi on the phone, but I couldn't get through it. That is life.
See, that is
That is
the
life.
thing. It is even in Maharashtra, even in Pune, where Shivaji Maharaj started his career, people from all political spectrums have come to your museum. They've said what a great thing you're doing. They appreciate what you're doing. But when it comes to walking the talk, nobody is doing it. Why do you think that
Yeah.
is?
Oh, because the system, the political system in India, the politicians take from you, but they never give back. Even the BJP is a prisoner of that. It's a system made by the Congress. That when I need you to get elected, I'll come to you. I'll come. I'll ask. Now the Muslim vote is very important. So everybody, it's become an excess now. This is Mamta Banerjee and all these people. They go to excess to the Muslim vote because there are some places where the Muslims are in your majority. But the system is that the politicians take from you, but they never give back. It's like that. It's like that. It's a system set up by Nehru, whereby the politician should have been the servants of the people because Nehru was a socialist. So the politicians should have been the servants of the people. They should have been at the service of people. But maybe because they were not well fed, the power was given to them. The power of a politician to India is tremendous. Even Mr. Modi, I'm a great admirer of him. I really, he's such an extraordinary being. But the power that he has today, I mean, I've been to his race course residence. I have been to South Block. I've interviewed eight Indian prime ministers. So I know the power that politicians have in India is disproportionate.
Hmm.
In France, a minister can go, of course, it's a smaller country, but there's still terrorism. A minister can go to the restaurant, he doesn't have, 20 cars, and 20 gun toting,
That's right.
VIP security. In India, the smallest politician, has so much power. So it's a distortion of politics, but it looks like it's set in stone now. I don't see how Mr. Modi is going to get out of that because he himself is in a golden chain. He's there. He has so many great ideas. He wants to change things, but how does the bureaucracy? Actually, I'm asking you that question. How is Mr. Modi going to bypass his huge bureaucracy from the layers of very high intelligent bureaucracy he has around him to the people all the way down, who are the ones who have to implement the. So my question to you is, how is Mr. Modi going to bypass the bureaucracy?
I think he has managed to do the last mile delivery pretty well. So, in that sense, what he has done, the kind of last mile delivery that this government has managed, and a large part of why he got so many votes from the poorest of the poor, why people from UP and Bihar they voted. Earlier they would vote for their cars, they would vote for their village strongman, they would vote for whoever would give them things. This is the first time that they transcend all that and they voted for. It wasn't so much a victory for BJP as it was a victory for Modi, and that was for a reason, because the last mile delivery had actually worked. They had got gas cylinders, they had got toilets, they had got mudra accounts, they had got money. So to that extent, yes, the bureaucracy has been brought in control, and I know of senior people in the team who are fired with the same dream. But having said that, it's a machine that has been built in a certain way for 70 years. It's like you have an old ramshackle bus and you change the driver, and then you say now you drive at 120 speed when the bus cannot go beyond 40. It's a little unreasonable, no? Earlier,
Yes.
the bus could go at the maximum speed of 40, but the driver would run it at Manmohan Singh would run it at 10 kilometers per hour. Now, just because the driver has been changed, you expect Mr. Modi to take that same bus at 120 kilometers per hour. It's not going to happen. But what can happen is from 10 kilometers per hour, he can bring it to 35 kilometers and the max speed is 40 kilometers, and which is what he has done. So in that
Okay.
sense, I think it's a little bit unfair to say that he is a prisoner of the bureaucratic shackles and all. Uh, does more need to be done?
You
Of
don't think
course, more
so?
needs to be
You
done.
don't think so? You don't think so?
Pardon me.
You don't think that he's a prisoner of a system set up by the Congress?
I think that the system itself has been in such a strong grip for 70 years that it's going to take time to dismantle it. And it's 6 years versus 70 years. There is a lot of disparity here. I think we also need
I
to have reasonable expectations to say, despite working with so many disadvantages, when I see how much has been achieved in this past 6 years, barring the narrative story, okay? And the narrative story, I'm totally saying that the government hasn't done anything in changing history textbooks or overhauling institutions or trying to do something to fix the actual narrative. In that, my dissatisfaction is very huge. But when it comes to last mile delivery, when it comes to national security, I think this government has done a great job. Can it do better? Of course, it can do better. Anybody can do better. I can do better. You can do better. But if I have to give the report card to this government, this is what I would say, that in certain areas, like setting of narratives, like changing of history books, or freeing Hindu temples, the core Hindu issues, so to speak, the progress card has not been that great. But when it comes to national security, when it comes to internal security, when it comes to last mile delivery, they have managed to get quite a bit done, and that is true. That is my uh,
That's true.
valuation of this government. Anyway, I don't want to talk about what Mr. Modi should do or Mr. Modi shouldn't do, because I don't have a control over that. I can speak about it, but why has he not done certain things is something that is for him to answer and for his team to answer. But what I would
Sure.
like to ask you next is, why do you think that the average English educated Indian, and I'm asking you because you have the outsider's view, I belong to this country, so I may have my biases, I may have my points of view, but you can look at it from a drone point of view, you can look at it from an outsider's point of view. Why do you think that the urban upper middle class educated Indian, why is that person, he or she, so totally cut off from their roots? Why are they so defensive about saying that they are Hindu? And why are they always, saying I am spiritual and not religious and crap like that, quite frankly?
Uh, No, no, I mean, this will actually lead to a question I wanted to ask you. The problem with education in India, that, as a Frenchman, I was educated to be proud of my poet, my was, the great writers, Victor Hugo, Napoleon, So even today, French people are educated to be proud to be French, I mean, if you see French people and you must have gone to Paris, French are proud people. But in India, the education that Mr. Nehru borrowed from the British is still there. So You are not teaching any Indianness to your kids. You're not teaching them about Shivaji Maharaj, not teaching them about Kalidasa, who was probably one of the greatest ever poets, even translated from the Sanskrit to English. You can see that, he's on the par of Shakespeare and Homer. You don't teach them the Mahabharata, you don't teach them the Ramayana. In fact, you teach them to look down upon their own culture because this is what Nehruvianism is about. What Mr. Nehru did, is surviving today. You have very nice, Hindu upper class or middle class families, who think like Nehru, who think about secularism, who think about all religions are the same, who think that, I'm a Hindu and better not say that I'm a Hindu. If I go to United States, I will bland and forget that I'm a Hindu. So education is the key. This is why I keep asking this question. Unless education is changed in India, some Indianness, we're not saying that Hinduness, I'm saying some Indianness is taught
Indianness.
to the,
Yeah.
that Vedic mathematics did, 3,000 years ago, that, what they couldn't do in the West, in the 18th century, that Indian astronomy was far ahead of Western astronomy. So unless you teach kids to be proud, then this is what we talked about the other day, that the brain drain to the United States for me is very sad. I hope the coronavirus is going to stop that immense brain drain of the Hindu brains. The best Hindu brains go to the West and going to the West for 70 years and are still going to the West. Every Indian parent that I know, even from the RSS, are dreaming to send their children to American universities. It's so sad. Such a great country, so much potential. Mr. Modi needs his brains. The Chinese went back to China. One China became, started coming up. The Chinese
That's
brain
right.
went back to China. Some of the best brains today in China. Some of the best heads. Chinese Americans. So why is it not happening to you? That is my question also to you. Why this great brain drain?
So again, we come back to the same thing, right? We again come to the educational reforms. We again come to teaching our children to be proud of our roots, to be proud of who you are. And that is the Nehruvian policy that unfortunately is still being continued. But there are talks of having a new education policy, and this is a question I keep asking in every gathering, wherever I'm invited, in every interaction, that when are the school books going to be changed? But I think both of us are on the same page that unless we change our basic education system, unless we stop following Thomas Webington Macaulay, we are probably going to lose our young minds like this. And the other thing that I can say is for 70 years, the institutions, particularly the humanities, the institutions that actually form the narratives, the institutions that produce writers, journalists, academicians, they are the ones who have been taken over systematically, very systematically, by the left liberal lobby. And so you have generations of journalists, you have generations of writers, you have generations of academicians who echo only a certain point of view and who just do not let the other point of view even come into fore. Forget about countering it, they do not even let it be expressed. So it's kind of like a spiral of silence, right? So once a idea is basically trampled upon, it just keeps getting lower and lower and lower, and the idea that's on the ascendance, that keeps getting bigger and bigger, which is what is happening in India. So yes, our side, and by that I am talking about the Hindus, I'm not just talking about the government, because there are things that the government does and there are things that individuals and societies do. I think that as individuals, even the urban educated Hindus need to understand how important it is to get into institutions, to establish institutions of our own, and to ensure that we produce people who produce a good quality of scholarship, who write books, who write articles, who do independent research. And rather than just fulminating on social media, and we are all guilty of it, I am too. But I really think that the way forward is okay. We have a lot of expectations from the government, that's one side. But I think that all of us also need to understand that in order to change the narrative, we need to have our own institutions, we need to have our own scholars, we need to cultivate our own scholars, and we need to cultivate a network where the left side basically it's like one person writes a very substandard shoddy thesis and three people quote it and then six people quote those three people, so it's a very incestuous, you scratch my back, I scratch my back, your back kind of a ecosystem. So that is also something that we need to understand, how to build a platform, how to support each other, and how to grow not as an individual but as a network.
Very, very nice. Why don't you ask me the last question?
Are we already close to finishing?
I
My
say
last question, yeah,
25.
my last question is, as and I'm asking this not to you as a friend of India, I'm asking this question to you as a journalist who has had a lot of experience of reporting on South Asia issues. How do you see India seeking its place on the world geopolitical stage in the next decade or so? And don't ask me why is Modi not doing this, why is Modi not doing that, but I want your
Super
opinion,
question,
your
super
frank
question.
opinion.
Super question. Now, before the coronavirus, I always thought that India, economically, is the only country that can compete with China because the West has invested so much in China. You know that trade for China, the West has invested all its chips into China. Everything is manufactured in China now. And actually, during the coronavirus, for instance, in France, my country, they realized that all the 97% of antibiotics are manufactured in China. So suddenly, the West has realized that there is,
Hmm.
they have invested too much in China. And so I always said that India is the economic alternative to China. You know that I didn't know about the coronavirus, but when the West starts realizing its mistake, they will actually divide their chips and reinvest in India. Now, geopolitically, even before the coronavirus, seeing the China thirst for swallowing everything. Hong Kong they swallowed and they're going to swallow more. Taiwan eventually they will swallow. They're claiming they're taking Akshay Chin, taking Arunachal Pradesh. They've taken over the many small islands, particularly the Spratly
Yeah,
Islands. And
yeah,
now they're controlling maritime traffic. Between the South China Sea and the Indian Ocean is a very important thing. And America is the
that's
only
right.
one who said, oh, wait, this is dangerous. So
Yeah,
India is the only country that the West, the free world, the democratic world, can use to checkmate China, at least to control in some degree the Chinese search for hegemony. Of course, there's that road, that new Silk Road that they're building through the Himalayas, which comes into Pakistan, and from there they will, flood the West with their goods. So from a geopolitical point of view, especially after the coronavirus, which is a wake-up call for the West,
that's right.
India is going to play a very, very important geopolitical role. My only worry is that is India ready? For instance, if the West wants to relocate some of its industry, whether it's Apple, whether it's chip making, whether it's medicine to India, does India have the infrastructure? Has India liberalized enough? Recently, my brother sent me some stevia. We use stevia in our house. It was taxed by the China, by the China customs. So has India
Oh,
liberalized enough? Is India ready? Is India ready to be the geopolitical and economic superpower in Asia? Eventually on par with China, and eventually because India as a knowledge which China lost. China killed Buddhism, China killed Tibetan Buddhism, and also India has preserved that knowledge of who am I, what happens when I die, what is karma, what is dharma, what is anavada. So is India ready to assume that role? I'm asking you the question now, and then we'll close it.
you're very
You,
clever.
you,
Every time I ask you a question,
you,
you throw it right back in my court.
do you think your country is ready to become the geopolitical and economic superpower that can replace China slowly
Uh,
in light
I
of
think I think we are ready to claim our, and I say that I'm maybe biased because I'm obviously picking a side here and I'm speaking from the point of view of an Indian, but I genuinely believe that this is a great opportunity for India, as you said. to capitalize on it, to reclaim, I would say, I would use my words very carefully, that it is time for us to reclaim our rightful place as the thought leader or as the economic superpower of the world. We need to have some serious capacity building. We need to clamp down on bureaucratic controls. And there are lots of things that need to be done before it is possible. But keeping my fingers crossed and praying to all the gods that this dream comes true, and this, if it cannot be done under Mr. Modi, it's not going to be done.
Thank you, Shefali. It was great to talk to you.
Thanks
Huh?
a
Both,
lot.
I mean, and you know what you prompted in me. It was great. You could be a very good journalist. You are a
I have
journalist.
I have no
You
intentions
are
to be a journalist. I'm just fine being who I am. But it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And Romba Nandri, as you know Tamil, and I also know a little bit of Tamil.
and we'll do it again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Namaste.
much. Thank you. Namaste.
Bye.